All right, and welcome to What Happens in This House Stays in This House, Strength Over Silence. I am your host, Tammy Montgomery Dozier, and when I tell you, people, you are going to be impressed with this podcast. Yes, you are. So today we're going to talk about Heal Thyself. So often we as women, we're so busy focusing on family, relationships, that we don't focus on ourselves, our past pains and hurts, and we go out into the world. And we're giving ourselves to the world, but we don't take care of ourselves. And today we're going to talk about some stuff. So bear with us, have a good time with us. So I'm going to ask each lady to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves. So I'm going to go first with Miss Latoya Obi Brown over here.
Hi, I am Latoya Obi Brown. I am a mother, a wife, a sister. I hold a lot of titles. My crown is very heavy. It's, I currently work in the FMLA world of leave. Also writing part-time. And again, just living life one day at a time.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, let's go with Miss Carolyn Webb.
All right, my name is Carolyn Webb. I am a single lady. I've worked for the transportation department for 21 years. I'm a minister in the music, minister in ministry. I'm a part of SOS, Sisters of Support. I'm a part of Sister Help. All of them are ministry geared toward broken women who deal with domestic violence. I'm a part of Sarah's Inn. That's where I got where I went to school for my domestic violence to be licensed. I'm a licensed minister. I got quite a few too, but I think that's about it right about now.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. All right, with Devereaux, please tell us about yourself.
Yes, hello. So my name is Wits Devereaux. I am an award-winning author. I am also a domestic violence survivor as well as an advocate. I founded my own nonprofit, Not by My Own Community, Inc., where we help women who have survived domestic violence to rebuild their lives post-abuse. And then I also do PR. So I'm a mom as well. I have a lot of titles, but mainly I think of myself as a servant leader. And that's the best way to sum all of that up.
Thank you guys so much. So I want to just dive into this. I don't know how long this is going to take. I didn't put a time limit on it, so because I just figured that we're just going to go with the flow. So my question to each one of you is, have you ever been in an abusive relationship, whether it be physical, verbal, emotional, or sexual abuse? If you're willing to be open about that.
Yes, I'll answer. So as I shared in my introduction, I am a survivor. My actual first encounter with sexual abuse was molestation when I was 5, and that was with a family member. But that really set the tone of me getting into abusive relationships as a teenager. That was my first one. I was 17. And that was actually physically abusive. And then I later had a baby. So I was a teen mom. Once I got out of that physically abusive relationship, I started dating someone else who was emotionally abusive. So I didn't really heal before I got into another relationship. But because I didn't know what domestic violence was, I really didn't know that any of that was abusive. I thought it was normal to argue to the point of fighting, and then also for someone to put you down or call you at your name and things like that. But that really came from the root cause of the molestation happening when I was so young.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Anybody else?
I'll go. I have experienced all of the above, a little similar to Wits. I too dealt with molestation at a very young age by a family member, as to where my family covered it. And for years, I thought I made it up. For years, I thought that my voice didn't matter. I did tell a few people, but again, at that young of age, I was 5 when the molestation started. And then I was actually raped when I was 7, and they were caught by my grandmother. So to have certain things unfold in a way and you still not really understand what's happening, what's going on. But I was actually molested by a brother and a sister. So to have that tag team, and these were people that were around me 24/7. These were people that I loved. These were people that I enjoyed being around. So at no point did I think that it was wrong. I didn't know that it wasn't something I was supposed to be doing. And then as I got older, I felt bad for possibly enjoying it. The actual feeling of it, because it's unknown. I'm still coming into myself as a young lady. So to go through that at such a young age, and then to become older and be around this person. And again, I idolized this person. I didn't hate them. But as you get older and you read stuff and you see things like, wait, did this happen? Or isn't that supposed to be wrong? So I doubted myself. I questioned myself. I even tried to put it in the back of my head and make it seem like it didn't happen. But it did happen. And as I got older and confided in friends, certain family members, the truth came out. And it didn't necessarily come out to everyone, but to have that person admit what they did and apologize, I began to get angry. And I hated that person. I still am angry. I'd be lying if I said I'm not. And
Right.
I've, chosen to just separate myself from them. Not necessarily in isolation, but I just choose not to deal with them. So in that sense, I guess having that closure and knowing I did make this up, I didn't lie, and this did happen and it was wrong. To further transition to, my teenage years where I was dating someone whom I thought I loved, but growing up in my background, I didn't have my mother around. I didn't have my father around. I was raised by both my grandmothers. So I was kind of just out there, I experienced the world as it experienced me in very raw form. So to be out there so young and, experiencing with young men, I can't say boys, because even at the age of 14, 15 years old, I was meeting men, not boys. But you couldn't tell me anything. I was grown, I wanted that feeling of feeling good. At least that's what I thought it was. So in the relationship that I was in as a teenager, the signs weren't really there in the beginning. He was cute. He was popular. He was older. So, having to succumb what I had been through before, it still wasn't a wrong to me. So
I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for that. Miss Carolyn, you have anything to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm a survivor as well, and it started over 34 years. I'm moving up to 11 years in my freedom. Come November the 4th will be 11 years for me. But however, before that came, it had been over 34 years that I had suffered everything other than sexual abuse. So, but my story started in my house. My dad was emotional. What I've learned later, when I learned about what abuse is, my dad was emotional, psychological, mental, abusive, spiritual abusive, and so he like set the stage for the 16-year-old because I was 15 years old. So he set the stage in me because it was in the house that my self-esteem got killed. So when I met me being, I'll say maybe 14, him being 15, and when I started dating him, I was 15 and he was 16. I got my real first slap in the face that I had to figure out I had just got slapped. I felt this burning sensation on my face. One day he and I were talking, and it took me a few minutes to realize that I had been slapped in the face. That's just how quick it was. So that continued to be a process, and that just led me down the road from one relationship to the next relationship, other than my first marriage and my husband dying, and then going back into it, again. So that set the stage for me to receive emotional abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. So it just was a trail until, like I say, 10 years ago, I made up my mind, that this is something it has to stop. And so I started my process, at that time of healing, allowing God to show me, because even though I came out of my second marriage in an abusive marriage, wanting to take this man's life, was on my way to the kitchen. And something about this, even though this happened 10 years ago, each time I tell this story, it still has an effect on me. And it has an effect on me because I think about, coming down that hall. And coming down that hall, God gave me a vision to see a prison cell. And I myself believe that was a death row sentence for me, because I knew that if I had stabbed him once, I'd have stabbed him from a 9-year-old little girl all the way up to what everybody had ever done to me. From all the hurt I had suffered from people and men, he would have been the person that what they had all done, he'd have had every stab for every individual. And that's a heinous crime, and so I just thank God for how he quickly got my attention, and I was able to walk away and never look back at it, again. So
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate you all giving your testimony. Let me give a little bit about myself. So I was molested by someone in the church from ages 10 to 12. And just like Latoya was talking about, I didn't realize that it was wrong, because they don't tell you that when you're in the situation, it feels good. You're thinking like, okay, well, he's my boyfriend and he's that. I didn't know until I was older that I had been molested. And people said, well, that was wrong. I had no idea. I had no clue. At 10 years old, I didn't know anything about sex. My parents were getting divorced and they were so busy in their own stuff. Nobody was paying attention to me. So this person was like a predator. And the first thing I remember they said to me was, can I teach you about the facts of life? And I'm like, sure. I don't know. I didn't know anything about it. And so that lasted for a couple of years. And I didn't get up the courage to tell my parents till about 3 or 4 years. Nobody knew about this till about 3 or 4 years ago, because I did not realize that carrying this for all of those years was a detriment to my life. I had gained weight. I kept getting out of, in bad relationship after bad relationship. Also, when I was in my 20s, I went out on a date. And I was like, I wasn't, I was feeling the guy, but I wasn't. I was like, maybe I shouldn't. And then so we went back to his place. And he raped me. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do it. And I changed my mind. And no means no. And all I remember is we were right by my house. I remember walking home, sitting on the side of the bed, numb. And I never told anybody about that. Not until about 4 years ago. So I carried, and I commend you ladies for coming out, because I carried this guilt. I carried this thing in me for all of these years. I went to church while everybody else was praising God. I was feeling like I was not worthy of being in his presence. Like, why would he love somebody who's as damaged as me? So that is how I spent my life. And I'm glad, Miss Carolyn said it's been 11 years. I've had about 4 years where I'm finally getting into me and learning about me, because I've carried all of this in for so long. So I do appreciate this, because this is very hard to talk about. I think that most of us women, we hold on to this because we do feel that other people won't understand and they'll judge us. So again, ladies, I thank you for coming on. So my next question for you all. After all this transpired, after all of this, and you started getting into your own, and when you got into a relationship after all of this happened, did you notice like anything about the person that you got with, or did you just go into the relationship? Being damaged, oftentimes we don't know. Do you ever recall being in a relationship saying, this person isn't for me, I'm just going to go for it? Or you just think you're in love and then you find out later, where you were blinded by whoever they were?
Well, I think for me, it was like both.
Okay.
So when I was 5 and that molestation happened, I didn't talk about it myself until I was like in my mid-20s, but not to family. I had started going to this domestic violence ministry at my church. And as the ladies started to share, that made me feel comfortable because I felt like I was hearing my story just told back to me. So at the time that I was in that in that ministry, I was in an abusive relationship. And so I would tell him that I was going to a women's meeting because some was like telling me that he was a little off. None of my family liked him. None of my friends liked him. He had actually proposed to me and nobody wanted to come to the wedding. They were like, we're going to come with signs. We're going to pick it. We're going to say, no, don't marry this man. But in my mind, I thought they were jealous. They were hating. They didn't want to see me happy because the abuse was different than what I had experienced in a prior relationship, with it being emotional and psychological. I really believed the things that he told me in terms of nobody else will want you. I have your best interest at heart. Like they just don't want to see you happy. So I started believing that stuff. But after a while, when nobody liked him and they said they're not coming to the wedding, I'm like, okay, sirens going off. But going to that domestic violence ministry while in the relationship helped me to get the strength and the knowledge to learn what abuse was so I could slowly make my exit plan, my safety plan, and get out of that situation. After I got out of that, I did get into a relationship where I was able to identify the signs right away. And I'm like, oh no, this person is controlling. And if you've ever seen a power and control wheel, they have it where at the center is power and control. And that's where the abuse is rooted from. Like a person wants to have power and control over you. And so learning what the cycle of abuse was, learning what the warning signs were, helped me to get out of that situation much quicker. And at this point, I don't tolerate any of that mess. So that's why I said it's like both, but it was a process. And I had to learn what it even was, because it's not something that you're taught about in school. My parents didn't really talk to me about abuse or even intimate partner relationships. And they did not know that I had been molested until shortly before I released my book. So at that point, I had to tell them, but in living in the shadows for so long, it wasn't until I really learned what the warning signs were to be able to say, okay, you know what? I'd rather be by myself and feeling healthy and whole and complete than dating people who make me feel less than. Because I would go to work. I used to work in a nursing home, and I would be in, we had closets as offices. Latoya, you might remember this.
Mm-hmm. I do. Down the hall from my mother's room.
Yes, I was in it then. And I would be locked in that closet crying with him on the other line of the phone, yelling at me and belittling me at work. And I have to dry my eyes, come out, and put on a face. And so people didn't know around me that was happening, But because I was going to that ministry, I was able to learn, heal, and move forward.
Thank you. Powerful. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
After my altercation, I can't say that I was in many relationships after that. At that point, it was more of a, I'ma just do me. And I kind of became numb to the world. Like I didn't have feelings. I didn't have emotions. I guess even now, when it comes to sex, there's no emotions there for me. You know, some people say, oh, you know, when you give yourself to a person, you know, you're stuck with them. I don't have that. And I sometimes still think that there's something wrong with me because I have such a detachment from that. As a married woman who loves her husband dearly, I still yearn for that attachment. I still yearn for that intimacy that was taken from me. Even when we first met, there were certain triggers that I never even knew I had when it came to certain ways that my ex used to touch me. With my ex-boyfriend, he kidnapped me for 3 days. I was handcuffed to a bedpost. He raped me repeatedly. And even after he released me, he stalked me for I don't know how long, from meeting me at the bus stop with guns to, you know, my friends, my school. If I'm not at school by a certain time, you know, they were prompted to call the police. His picture was posted around my school. So, you know, certain ways that a person may touch me is like, don't do that. I get angry. But I didn't realize that that was a way that he used to touch me, or a way that he would initiate sex for me. And it would turn me off. But again, I didn't realize those triggers because I really didn't have anyone that was really intimate with me. Having sex is different. It's not the same as making love. There's a huge difference. I don't think I made love for the first time until I met my husband. Because even before that, there was no real emotional attachment, even with my child's father. I was with him for 13 years. And I can't say that I felt in him what I feel with my husband, but I'm still working on that. I'm still working on myself. I'm still working to, you know, hopefully build. And we've talked about that, you know, because I feel like, as you say, like something's wrong with me because I don't have that same attachment with sex. It's an act. So, you know, that is something I can say that was stripped from me that I don't know if I will get that back. So, you know, I haven't had many relationships after that incident other than my child's father and, you know, my now husband. So anything else other than that was just me having sex.
Wow, that is deep. Thank you for sharing that. That is very deep.
Yeah.
That's being very transparent. I know for me, I was like you emotionally. I had to learn how to care about people. I had no type of emotion towards people. I would see people like love on each other. I'm like, oh my God, I want to be like that. I didn't have any of that with people. So I do get that part of that. And I still have to learn too, to sometimes have to care about things and people because of somebody took that away from me too. They took that from me, learning about that first love and being all giddy and, you know, having sex first and being in love. So I didn't have that opportunity. So thank you for sharing that. Miss Carolyn, you have anything?
I just want to say, when I stayed with my two oldest sons' father from 15 to 21. And the next person I started dating, I received the same thing, the same abuse, the same thing I went through. So it was a repeated cycle for me. When 3.5 years later, when I left that relationship because of so much abuse, I met my husband. Now, my husband was one thing to me, but I questioned myself for that. To me, my husband, well, I said in the beginning that my husband was mental abusive, which to me, that's the worst form of abuse you could have. So my husband had like 2, 3 addictions. And my thing is that I wanted him to be consistent in coming home, consistent with your paycheck, consistent, I wanted to be the family, like I grew up in the house with my mother and my father. That's what I wanted. So the mental abuse came because I wanted him to be something that he was not, and so me being in the marriage and me wanting that with him. Now, he never called me out my name. He never cussed me. He never hit me. He never did any of those things. But he would come home when he wanted to come home. If he wasn't getting high, he would come home. If he was getting high, he wouldn't come home. Sometimes I would have to go to the drug house and take him clothes because I didn't want him to come home and our children see him that way. So those things in wanting the type of family I wanted with him was not, he was, if it's a such thing, they would call him a functioning addict, an individual who went to work every single day. He was a semi-truck driver, and I've never ever known him not to go to work. But there were times he would always deposit his check, but it'd be that one time he would give it to the dope man. So I don't know if he caused it, or can I say I allowed it, because I didn't walk away from the marriage. I loved him because with the men prior, I was a be this, a hold that, a MF this, and you stupid, you dumb, I can just go through the names and my self-esteem was already shot. It was dead when they finished with it. So I loved him because he was not that person. 20 years, I had never been cussed out, never been called out of my name, so, I had 2 sons with someone else, and he treated my sons. He never called them his stepchildren. So it was things like that caused me to stay. But one day I walked away from it too, because the addiction to drugs and gambling and drinking, and it became too much for me. And so he took sick, and like I say, and I took care of him, and he passed, and I was with someone else, and I went back into the same thing, so I was with someone who was abusive, who was hidden, who was calling names. I went back to the same thing. And it was that last time when it came down to me and my son's life that I made a choice. This got to be it. So for the last coming up to 11 years, I've been by myself fixing me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So my next question, you ladies have children. I had, when I was in my early 20s, I got pregnant and I had a miscarriage. And my biggest fear for me having a child was I didn't want whatever happened to me to happen to them. And that was one of my and that's why people say, well, why you don't have kids? And I think part of that, I use it as an excuse that I would have to wait till I got married, but I've been married for a minute now. And that's not the reason why I didn't have kids. And I think I let my own fears keep me from having children. So with you ladies having kids, do you find yourself being overly protective, or who, if they're dating and looking at who they're dating, or what is that like for you guys?
It's
Wow.
traumatizing.
Yeah. I was 18 when I had my first daughter. And I was still in the abusive relationship. I actually left her dad when she was 11 months, relocated for safety, changed my number, all of that stuff. However, I really still didn't even know that I was in an abusive relationship. I just knew that it was bad. It was unhealthy, unsafe. He was always going back and forth to jail, things like that. As she grew up, I would not let her go to certain relatives' house because I hadn't even told my family at that point what happened. And then when I had my second daughter, I remember her coming home and telling me that she had taken a bath with a boy cousin, and I was freaking out. I called her dad and I'm like, now, you know what happened to me, because I was honest with him and shared, because it did affect our intimacy, just like Latoya was saying. And he was like mad at me that I was upset that she was in the bathroom or in the bathtub with the boy cousin. The way I found out is because she was telling me what the boy parts were and how they were different. And I really didn't like that. It made me feel sick to my stomach. I was mad. I was upset. And after that, I was just like, she can't go over there if you're not going to protect her in that way. Like, they can be close, because it was my cousin who did that to me. And we were very close. And I didn't want that same thing to happen. So it really got in the way of different relationships I had with men in particular. Being single and trying to date is very scary. But now that I'm like more in a healed place, I talk to people about it openly, and I don't really let the fear rule me as much as it used to. The things really came to a head when my aunt, who knew about the abusive or the molestation that happened to me, was her son. A cousin actually walked in when he did that to me, told her. He got a whooping. I was separated, left in the room, and nobody ever talked to me about it. And so from 5 until almost 30, she couldn't understand why I didn't want to be there, why I didn't want to leave my kids there. One time my mom was visiting, and she's like, yeah, just bring the kids here. You can go out. I'm like, no, I'm going to have to talk to you about why, but I can't. And the aunt overheard me. She's like, what do you mean you can't bring them to my house? I'm like, well, you absolutely know why I can't bring them. But Mama, I'm going to talk to you later. But then I had to have the conversation, and my mother understood and never forced me to leave them there. But they didn't understand why I wouldn't for so long. Like, if you're going over there, I'm going to just keep my kids. And to this day, I still won't allow my children to go to certain relatives' houses, because that cousin did it to another cousin, and nobody believed her. It was just like they just covered it up. And I'm like, I don't want that to happen to my children. So what I do with them is I take them to different events where I have to speak or teach youth or families or parents so that they can hear the conversation. And we talk about it openly, like good and bad touch, what's appropriate versus not. How to let somebody know if a person is saying, oh, don't tell your mama, don't tell your daddy, don't tell anybody, this is our secret. I'm like, as soon as they tell you that, you need to come tell me, because anybody talking like that is a predator. So it helped me to turn the fear into more of a space of education and being more proactive, where before I was like so overprotective, so scared. And it really even affected like me allowing them to spend a night at friend's house. They can come over here, or we can go outside. But I don't want them spending the night just anywhere. I still am like that to this day.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, as you know, I'm very overprotective of your niece. Even when she was 2, I remember I was putting her in the bathtub, and she when I touched her down there, she flinched and said, "Ow." I'm like, "What's wrong?" She said, "Daddy." Before I knew it, I had a knife to his throat. So, but he understood, because again, I, was open, I shared, but I blacked out just with her. But what happened was he washed her up earlier, and as a man, he was a little rough. But all she said, but because she flinched and it was down there, and she said, "Ouch," and I said, "What happened?" Her just saying, "Daddy," I lost it. So that right there let me know this is going to be hard. Before my mom got sick, she babysat my daughter a lot. And the person that molested me and raped me, my mom loved in a way that I never understood, because she knew what happened. So I was confused. Either way, she still had a very good relationship with this individual. And I specifically asked her to not have my daughter around him. She disobeyed my wishes. It didn't go so well. And, even to this day, I probably have one of the most transparent relationships with my daughter a mother and a daughter can possibly have, because my biggest fear is something happening to her equivalent to me. Obviously, she'll be 13 next month. So our conversations have gotten different over the years when it comes to, obviously, she's hit puberty. She has her period. So we have to have those conversations of what can happen, what's good, what's bad, and she's at the age where she's exploring her own body. So I need you to be comfortable enough to talk to me when it comes to, like Whitney said, a good touch, a bad touch, an uncomfortable touch, no means no. And again, as I stated, earlier, she's coming into herself. So certain things may feel good, that unless you explain those sensations, those feelings, just having panties on and some rub up against your pearl tongue, like, "Oh, that tickles," you're not inhuman because you like that, or because obviously these kids are subjected to a lot of things that we may not have been openly exposed to in our age. So the times are different. They got these phones, everything's on YouTube, everybody's recording these videos, taking pictures. We didn't have that. So these conversations with our 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds are the conversations we had as 15, 16, if we even had those conversations. So for me, I understand what Whitney's saying when it comes to spending the night. They can come over here. You can't go over there. But it's more of that safety net of just knowing you're here. But even in that, it can still happen here. So I think the most important thing for me is just making sure that I have those conversations with her, with signs of what this is, what that is. Again, good touch, bad. I just think those conversations are very important when you have young girls growing up, even at school. My daughter has had experiences even now with girls coming on to her or wanting to touch her or wanting to make her feel good. Excuse me? But again, we live in a different time now where what they're seeing on television, they see girls kissing girls. It's an experiment to them. And you just have to be careful to not pose judgment if they do feel comfortable enough in saying, "Hey," because she can't say, "Mommy, I think I like girls." I say, "What? What do you like about girls?" "Oh, they're pretty." You're very pretty. There's nothing wrong with complimenting a girl. So when I further explain, the way you like a boy. Do you like her in that sense? Do you want to kiss her? It's like, oh, no, that's nasty. Oh, okay. You don't like girls, ma'am. But because of the world and the dynamics of certain things, it kind of pushes these kids to feel like, oh, well, I'm gay. No, you're not. So I think it's very important to have those conversations with your children about what sexuality is, what this looks like, what that looks like. It's hard, but there's no rule book. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no right or wrong way to do it, because every day I learn something different from her and she's learning something from me. And I tell her we gonna go through this together, because I don't have nothing else.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anything, Miss Carolyn?
Mine's is a little different. I have 3 sons. One of my sons is 42, one of my sons is 37, and one of my sons is 28. So my thing, bringing my children up in the house, I never, ever, ever allow my children to spend the night with anyone. And I never let them spend the night with anyone. I take that back. I let them spend the night with their dad. Whenever their dad would come get them, I would let them spend the night with their dad. But he was about it. My thing is that raising my sons to not do to women what men had did to me. Now that was my struggle, teaching my sons how to respect women, teaching my sons that, women are more emotional than men. I used to teach my sons that men love women with their thoughts and their mind, and women love men with their heart. So my thing was always telling them, keep your hand to yourself. If you and whoever, if you have an argument and if it get heated, you need to walk away. So that was my driving force, with my son, telling them, don't say this. I remember I had to tell one of my sons, he and I were talking on the phone, and him and his fiance, they were riding, they was on their way back to their house, and he didn't hang the phone up all the way. And quickly they had got into an argument, and I can hear both of them cussing each other. And I just let the phone lay there, and because I really wanted to hear all what he was going to say to her. And make a long story short, so I hung the phone up, and later on that night I called him and I said to him, for every word that you said, you threw a lash. It was a lash. I says, and the lash might not show up in her right now, but eventually down the line, it's going to show up, because when you're in love, you take the lashing. I says, but after you've cut and lashed for so long, I says, then the woman comes from really and truly loving you to pretending with you. And so I told my son, never, ever, ever. I didn't cuss you. And my reason is not that I didn't know how to cuss, because I did. I says, but my reason why I never cussed you all is because, one, I didn't want to teach you. And if you was going to be taught to cuss, you're going to be taught to cuss outside of the house. And what you got outside of the house, I don't want you to display it in the house. Not to say that they didn't, because I was a cusser myself. I just didn't cuss my children, And so I explained to them, words hurt. People say sticks and stones may break my bones and words will never hurt me. That's a lie. That's the biggest lie ever been told.
Yes.
Them cuss words hurt. And you need not to do that. I had to tell my oldest son, his wife, every time he would buy her, buy her something. He said he bought her he bought her several things for her birthday, and then he says he bought her a card for a gym membership. And I says to him, "You don't buy a woman a card for a gym membership, you know?" And he was like, "Well, what's wrong?" And I was like, "You give her a card for a gym membership, you calling her fat."
Pretty much, yeah.
You know, I said, so, you know, she might not show it to you now, but she'll show it to you. He said, "Well, I thought that's what she wanted." I said, so my thing is always was telling my son, when it come to women, what not to do to them. Because I'm a woman and you all are men, and God created you different. You know, so that was, you know, that was my biggest thing in my house with my son. I just never wanted them to disrespect women or mistreat women, or, you know, I'm not saying what they didn't do, you know, but if it was something that I knew that they were doing, then I would address it, you know, and say, "Son, that, you know, that's not right. Don't do her that way. Don't do this to her. Don't do that to her," because it was opposite for me. As long as he and I was good, me and their mama was good. And when he and I wasn't good, then I wasn't no good, you know. So I never wanted to treat my daughter-in-laws that way. I wanted to love them for them.
Thank you. I like that perspective. And you know, sitting here talking, we were talking about girls. And I like the fact that you have sons. And so you had to go the opposite direction and show them how to treat a woman, because you didn't want them to do the same thing. I love that perspective. Thank you for sharing that. That was really good. Because sometimes you get to thinking about girls so much, you don't think about the traumatic effect that it can have on your sons and what they have to deal with, and the emotions that I'm sure there were plenty of times that they wanted to take up for you and step in and do all of those things and protect you. So I'm sure, you know, they carry some of that with them as well. So I like that. I appreciate that. So my question to you ladies now is, on the hardest days when you had to dealing with difficult things, what did you hold on to keep your sanity? What did you do? Like if you were in a bad relationship and you were in a bad place, what do you do to hold on to your sanity?
Well, for me, my faith was and is still a big coping tool that I have. As I shared earlier, I was going to a domestic violence ministry at the church while I was in an abusive relationship. So they helped to give me some confidence. And on the toughest days where I was sneaking out to go there, I would leave feeling more encouraged and more confident about finally taking that step to leave. You know, statistically, they say it takes a person up to 7 times before they finally leave an abusive situation. And for me, I actually lost count of the times. However, in going to the domestic violence ministry that I was encouraged to go to by my therapist, she's the one who pointed out to me that I needed to go, because I thought I was going there for depression. And when I explained to her the situation, what was going on, she's like, "Oh no, this is situational depression because you're in an abusive relationship." Pulled out that will. And then that's how I started going to the church and having them to help me. And through my faith, like that's always, I've been saved really since I was 7. Like I remember being baptized and I would always be like, "Lord, I don't want to be caught up or left in the rapture. Like if you come and everybody else go up, I don't want to be the last one here, you know." But that was something that I really took serious even as a child. So one of the things that I talked to God about is, if you get me out of this, I'll make sure to tell everybody I know that it was you. And that's how I started like the writings of the book and doing the nonprofit and all of that. It's just really me keeping my promise to God, because he kept his promise to me.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I was so young in my situation. I honestly don't really remember mindset wise where I was. I was so lost and confused. But at that age, I didn't have any children. Only thing I was focused on was school, honestly. But and for me, with the harassment and the stalking and me just feeling like I didn't have any freedom, and then for me, like, my family didn't even believe me. They thought I was lying when I was dealing with that, because that wasn't necessarily a runaway, but I wasn't the best kid in the world. So because I acted out in so many other aspects, it was like the boy who cried wolf. By the time I had a real situation, it didn't matter. It wasn't believable. It was like, oh, whatever. You're just trying to get out of trouble, or you just want some attention. When in all actuality, I was really going through something, and the person that I was able to confide in at that time was my grandfather and my pastor. So he was the one. He was my go-to person. Like, he went to court with me, and he would even went to the jail to talk to the boy. So he was my outlet. And he was my person to help me get through the days when I felt like I wanted to give up. Like, although I walked out of court, and charges were never pressed for the last incident that happened with me and the young man, but it was just like, if it wasn't for him, I don't know where I would be, because he was my like, even my friend was just like, girl, that he was your boyfriend. Like, how can your boyfriend rape you? It wasn't believable. Your peers are sometimes your worst critics. So, I didn't have a huge village in that sense at that moment, in that time, who was really believing of me, because I was so mean. And, again, I was very disobedient as a teenager. So I was very rebellious. I was very evil. I was very mean. So when I actually needed help, people were just like, nah, you okay. You would be all right. But that was the way that I acted with everything else. So that was no different. So the one time that I actually did need the help, it wasn't there for me. So I'm just grateful that I was able to pull through it, and I'm still getting through it, even as an adult, and just moving forward.
Miss Carolyn?
I had a grandmother. As a matter of fact, I had two grandmothers. And so both of my grandmothers was believers. They was believers in Christ. And so that foundation was set from a little girl. I always believed in God, because that's what both of my grandmothers, that's what they talked about. That's what my family talked about. So my to go to was always, no matter what, I would pray to God. And so that was, even when I wasn't going to church, even when I stopped going to church, my turn to go to was always to pray, to pray to God. Now, I want to say this. I truly believe that God uses people. I truly believe God uses his word, he uses his spirit, and that God uses people. And so God has sent different people in my life for different seasons to help me through that season. So, but it's still God that's doing it. I would pray and ask God for whatever it was that I wanted, and understanding it now, but didn't understand it then, that person appeared because they were there to help me through my season. Of course, now I'm in an intimacy relationship with God, which is totally different. So when I pray now and I need something from God and someone appear, I understand for the purpose that they come, so that has been my foundation, that I have always believed. I've always been a believer of Christ.
Thank you. So I want to go back to what you were saying, Miss Carolyn, about people coming into your life or, at the time when you need them. So my story began when I started to realize that it was really something wrong with me, because I went through life, I think, in denial, thinking, oh, I'm okay because I'm not thinking about it, because it's in the back of my mind that I'm okay. So one day I was watching Dr. Phil, and he had a show on there about a young lady who was being molested by her parents, her mother and her father. And so they say, if you want to be a rape crisis advocate, call this number. So I called the number. I wasn't working at the time, and I did a 40-hour training. So my job was to go into the hospitals whenever they called. It was a 12-hour shift. And I would go and meet with these young ladies when they had been violated. And I would go in there and they had their Johns in there. I had women who had been sex trafficked from state to state. That triggered me. And so I believe that triggered me because it was time for me to start healing, because it was time for me to start dealing with whatever it was that was going on with me, because I was in denial for so long. And after me doing that, then I just had like this episode. I just broke down. And as I went through this, I can say for a fact that God started bringing people into my life to help me to deal with this along the way, because this is the first time I had ever expressed this to people. And like Miss Witt here, I had a newspaper article coming out, and I had told the people about my life, and I hadn't told my parents. So I had to tell my parents like a couple of days before the newspaper article came out. And that is how everyone found out about it. So I totally agree. What is that saying? I think they say when the student is ready, the teacher will come, the teacher will appear. So in doing that, God began to bring people into my life where I can talk to or even minister to, because in the midst of this, when I talk about this, it does something for me. It helps me heal even more when I go out and able to talk to young ladies and different people, because then I may say, oh man, I didn't even realize. I didn't realize it was still bothering me. I remember the first time I talked to Miss Carolyn on the phone, she said something to trigger me. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was still bothering me. And I needed that because there's some part of me that needed to heal. Some parts. So I totally agree with that oftentimes we as women, we get busy every day. We don't take time to heal ourselves, but we go out healing everybody else.
Say that part.
If somebody is hurting, we gonna heal them, but we gonna wait. I'll take care of myself next week because this person needs me right now. And I think that's something that we really, really need to get out of. So my next question to you, with everything going on with social media, with all these basketball wives, with all these different things, do you think that we as women, that we find it hard to be honest with each other in this climate? Because the world is telling us what it is to be a woman in one spot, and we're believing that it's the money and the fame and all this other stuff. Do you think that we support each other in each other's foolishness? Do you think that we don't want to listen to each other anymore? Like back in the day, Big Mama would come and say, well, girl, this is what you need to do. Do you think that we're just not honest, or you think that we just say, you know what, that's them over here? What do y'all think?
I think it's very segregated when we say we, because I think all of us on this phone are in different age brackets, to the point where I can speak to one age, Miss Carolyn may speak to one age, you and Whit may speak to one age, and I think it would be different. I can say in my circle of friends, and these people that I genuinely call my friends, I don't use that word too loosely because I don't have many of them, because my friends are my family. So I really even use that word because the people that I've been around have been in my circle for 20 plus years. So this is no longer a friend. These are my sisters. And I can say that we have very transparent conversations. We have, we are each other's accountability partners. I don't have yes men in my corner or yes women, so to speak, well, that's just gonna go along with what I say because I said it. No, they gonna say, hey, you wrong. That ain't right. Even if I'm on bullshit, like, hey, we might participate, but we gonna tell you this is wrong. And, this, but, sometimes I can get lost in my thoughts and I act before I speak or I act before I think. For those that know me personally, know that I'm still growing with that. And I've done that a lot in my past. So, I may call and say, hey, I need you to come meet me here. Like, what are you doing or what's going on? So, but again, I have people that are going to be, hey, you was wrong. There's no validation in that. So when it comes to having these conversations about everyday life, whether it's your work, your job, your kids, you calling to be messy on the phone, like it's, we hold each other. I'm like, yeah, I'll let you talk now. I'm like, so you done being bitter because you mad? And those are hard conversations. Those are hard truths. But, it's, in my opinion, it's necessary. The sad part is my generation don't support each other. My generation don't uplift each other. It's sad. Everyone's in competition with each other. Instead of walking past a young lady and complimenting her, noses are turned. Whispers are had. Why though? Everything you see in me, you can have. And everything you see in me, you should go look in the mirror and see in yourself. But that's not what it is. I'd be lying to you if I said I'm blessed with the circle that I have. But it's so many people that I know that have never even experienced what real friendship is. And I'm not talking about every blue moon. Oh, hey, girl, we go out for drinks and kiki and kaka and lie about our lives. I'm talking about real conversations of, hey, I'm having a bad day. Let's have an intervention. Hey, so-and-so having a bad day. We pulling up at their house, 5 or 6 deep with a bottle, some food. We gonna cry, we gonna laugh, we gonna do whatever, but we gonna get them together. We fix each other's crowns. We don't let them fall. We fix them for each other. But again, that's my circle. Everybody don't have that support group to say that if they see me slacking, they gonna check me. Hey, what's going on? What you got going on? Ain't no such thing as 4-5 days you ain't heard from me. Oh no, if they don't hear from me in 24 hours, they pulling up at my house. They calling my husband. They calling somebody else like, hey, you talk. So, that I don't know what that lostness feels like, to say when it comes to, those conversations, because I have them every single day on a regular.
That's good. Very good. Anybody else want to comment?
It's once again, it's like a little different from me. I like what she said. Friendship is hard for me. And it's hard for me because I don't allow people to call me their friend. You only become my friend when I say you become my friend. Because I have a definition of what friendship is. And so because I have a definition of what friendship is, a lot of people don't know how to be friends to you. They just don't know. And when they don't know, they just don't know it. And you can't beat someone up because they can't be to you what you need them to be to you. And so what I try to do in my life, or what I do in my life, I show you
I show you along the way that if you want a friendship with me along the way, this is what it looks like to me. So you can have a real concept, because going shopping with me doesn't make you my friend. We going to lunch doesn't make you my friend. When you get ready to get what they call knee deep within it, I'm having a bad day, or I'm going through something, I'm sick. When your back is against the wall, you can then realize who your friend is. When you shed your tears and, you sitting right next to me and you shed them because I'm shedding them, that's a part. There's a lot of things that make up friendship, and it ain't always the good that tells, who you are. So like in ministry, young women, they come to me. I drive transportation with young women. They come to me and I'm like, and so they try to be my friend. Well, I'm like, no, well, I'm old. I can't see myself really being your friend, because like you my children's age. But God had to show me that it's not within the age, it's within the individual. And so with that, he used that to build friendship and to build relationship with. And so now I stand before these women once a month on a Saturday at 12 o'clock noon. And like this Saturday, we're having a SOS meeting, which is Sisters of Support. And our thing is shackles. And God gave me the lesson of shackles 2 months ago. Well, I had to walk through that for 2 months because I had to have my own releasing, because I can't stand before them and tell them no lie. Because why? I'm transparent. Like, I don't care what you know. I'm not ashamed of what I've been through. I have forgiven. I walk in this thing. Like, I don't make up no stuff. If it's dirty, I tell the dirty truth. If it's unclean, I tell the unclean truth. So God called me to a ministry of transparency, and transparency don't look good all the time, but it ain't just for me. It's not just for me. Like I go to class. I go to a lifesaver class. Why? I go to a lifesaver class because even though I'm walking in ministry, there's still things that I deal with too. So I don't stand before the women and pretend like, oh, I got it all down pack. Oh, I got it all good. It's all put together. Nah, I don't do that. I come out and I bring the entire truth about me, and so when they are going through something and they hit me up, we hit the whole line up because it's a whole line of us, so it's being put out there. We come to one another's rescue. When you need to cry, we cry with you, or I might let you cry and then I might speak into you because I believe in speaking into my sister. As the young lady said, your crown ain't gonna be crooked around me. I'm gonna make sure if I gotta stick some bobby pins in it, I'm gonna make sure it's sitting up straight.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So me myself, the more I walk in ministry, the more and more I'm transparent, and I'm transparent because God wants those women come out of hide, pull your shackles off. Pull the mask off your face. You are who I say you are. You're not who other people say you are. You are not who they told you was going to be. Stop living the life of other people and start, because see, life is a journey. In the journey is a process, and in the process, take patience.
Amen.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Ms. Witt, you have anything?
Yeah, so in terms of like social media and media in itself, I feel like it can be very divided. So at one point you have like the Me Too movement. So you have some people uniting like, yes, this happened to me, and they're together. But then you have the people who just don't believe you.
You're kind of freezing up. Can you hear us?
Yes, she is.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, come on back.
It might be the storm.
Yeah, because it is pretty bad.
It's storming in Chicago.
Yes, it is.
Very bad.
Yeah, it is. It stormed yesterday
Okay.
too.
Where do you live, Miss Carolyn?
I live in Kentucky.
Never been there.
So maybe Miss Witter come back. Oh, no, she coming back now. 1 second. Let me admit her.
For 9 years, and I went home because my dad took sick. My dad passed, and I stayed with my mother for 2 years. And I recently returned back to Kentucky back in October.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm back. Sorry for the technical
Oh,
difficulties.
no problem. So you can go
No,
ahead
it's
and
raining over
finish.
here. Yeah. So what I was saying is with social media and the media itself, it's a very divided space. So with Me Too movement, you'll have some individuals who are standing with the people that come forward, whether it's men or women, because I've seen both come forward. But then you also see people arguing. Within my circle, it's similar to what Latoya said. Me and my friends tell each other the truth. They were the ones telling me, if you marry this man, we're going to be picketing and telling you don't marry him. And we do the same thing, because I also had a friend who had to come to me and say, you know, this happened to me as well. And we don't really judge each other. It's more of a space of understanding and just trying to help you to get safe, get the resources you need to get help. A few years ago, I used to be a social worker. So my whole thing was like trying to save everybody, because I didn't want people to go through what I went through. I always wanted to be like the voice for the voiceless, the people who literally may not have been able to talk or speak up for themselves. So now with me going into different spaces, I talk to children. Some of them are a mixed bag. Some of them can't believe that these types of things are happening. Whereas some of the young ladies are like, oh, that happened to me. I didn't know it was abuse. And so it's like a very spread apart thing. We're not united on the same front. However, within my own circle and even the people that I mentor, one thing that we value is like the Vegas rule. Whatever happens here, it stays in here. Whatever you share here, it's not going to be spread about. And so they know when they come to our meetings, when they come to our events, that they're safe. And that's what people need. I feel like if you knew that you were safe with what you were sharing, you'd be more willing to share.
Yes.
You know, so we need more of us. And I'm glad we're doing this to be able to say, hey, this happened to me. This is how I'm dealing with it. This is the work I'm still doing to continue my healing. Because I don't feel like it's just like, oh, one day I'm just healed. Like, no,
Right.
I'm still in therapy. I still have people that I talk to, and I'm still helping other people. But it's like Miss Carolyn says, a lot of times before I deliver a message to my mentees, God has to deal with me in that area first. So whether it's unforgiveness or whatever it is, because he always gives me a different topic every month, he's dealing with me first so that I can really talk to them from a space of empathy, understanding, and no judgment.
Thank you. Because I teach kids too once a month. It's a sexual risk avoidance class. And we teach this, through the government. And it's about abstinence. But basically we teach kids that there are choices. Because some of us were given choices, others of us weren't given choices that happened to us. But it's just to let them know that they're in a safe space and that they can talk to us as well. So I do thank you guys for sharing that. So What is your message? All you ladies on here, your message and your mission that you guys talking here today. What is it that you want women to take away from us, from all of this today? What's the takeaway?
I guess for me, and what I hear from my peers and some of the younger girls that looked up to me, like, oh, Toy, I want to be just like you when I grow up. Like you got it all. You pretty. You got this. You got that. And I'd be looking at them like, baby, you couldn't walk a day in my shoes. But if you did, I don't want what I went through for you. I want you to, live for you and be you. I've always valued and appreciated the young women that has looked up to me and has always felt that I've always had it together. But baby, I just make it look good. Because behind all that you see, it's a story. And, it's not too often that I share it with people because I'm not gonna say I don't feel the need to, but it's kind of on a for me as a need to know basis, because you have to be careful with the people you share things with for the sake of what they're using it for.
Right.
For anyone that's listening that may know me or have heard about me or want to know, I'm always willing to talk, share. But as far as like a message goes, it's one day at a time. I'm still healing. I'm still, walking in certain shadows that I'm still afraid to go in and address. But, I don't speak much on my religious beliefs, but I was born and raised in the church. And that foundation, I know for a fact, has gotten me where I am. So prayer works. I ain't been the most church going person to sit in a church and, but if I can't do nothing else, even when my mouth was shut, I pray. That is the most powerful weapon you can possess is prayer. Whoever you pray to, whatever you pray to, pray. Because I guarantee you it is heard somewhere. And although you may not think it's being answered on your time, if you still here, it was answered.
That's very good. Love it. Love it. Thank you. Ladies, anybody else?
Well, I'd say, and it's like in alignment with what I do in terms of the nonprofit, is that you're not alone. So I use the hashtag everywhere, hashtag not by my own. And that's really just to let people know there are other people who do want to support you, that do understand. If you're going through something like this, you are not what is happening to you. Nothing that you did warrants someone abusing you. There's no justification for it. Because I used to try to rationalize that in my mind myself. Like, well, maybe if I didn't do this, or if I didn't say that, or if I changed this, then that person wouldn't hurt me. There's absolutely no excuse for abuse. So just know that you're not alone. There are resources available. The ladies here with this podcast. And then I always give people the domestic violence hotline, which I can do before we leave. But just knowing that you're not alone, there are resources available, even in the midst of this pandemic, because the numbers were going up, because
Yes.
a lot of people were in the house with the abuser. And so just know that even in those situations that there is help for you. You don't have to stay in a household where someone is hurting you. Myself, I was in an abusive relationship and I used what's called the Safe Homes Act to relocate. So I was able to break my lease. They helped me find a place and I got up out of there. So you don't have to even be financially abused or dependent upon someone, because there's so many different types of abuse. That's another thing. Just because a person isn't hitting you doesn't mean you are not being abused.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really important just to have that education. So you can reach out to any one of us to get the education part of it so that you can get the support, know that you're not alone, and then move forward, because there is life after abuse.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Witt. Love it. Love it. All right, Miss Carolyn.
Okay. Everything they have said has been, I have really, really, really enjoyed this. But my thing is freedom. 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 I can't explain freedom because it's a feeling that you have to feel to know what it is. My next word is peace. I cannot explain peace because peace is something that you have to feel. You know, so how do you get your peace? How do you get to freedom? Even though I speak to different women and, you know, and talk to them, but in that, I'm a listener. Because if I don't have the answer, I've learned how to listen and grab a hope to what I need to strengthen me. There's not a day go by that I don't hear something that adds to me. It doesn't matter who it comes from. It just matters if I listen and I hear it. Because, you know, we've been taught what goes on in this house in my day. What goes on in this house stays in this house. That has been the most deadliest weapon that the enemy has used against us, because why? He come to kill, he come to steal, and he comes to destroy. The only three things he come to do. You know, so you have to do like I told a young lady. You got to get into the fight for your life. You know, you have to reach deep down inside and have a want to fight to become who God says you are. When you don't know who you are, you become who people say you are. And so you won't continue to be who people say you are. You got to find out, who am I? What was I meant to do? What is my purpose? For it doesn't have anything to do with church. It has everything to do with relationship. You know, so my thing is to build a relationship with God so you can become free. Who the Son of Man sets free, he is free indeed.
Yes. Thank you. Powerful. Ladies, you guys were awesome. This was awesome, phenomenal. I feel that even listening to your story, I feel that some part of me has been healed, because there may be something that you touched that I realized that I have not touched, that I need to go back and just take a look at myself some more. So I appreciate that. So this is my last question. I just want you guys just to share the information where we can contact you guys. And if someone has a question, or they want to get out of something, or they just want to talk to you, how can they reach you all? And then also tell about your projects, because I know Ms. Witt has several books out and things like that. So tell about what it is that you're doing as well.
Okay, so I'll go ahead. The first thing that I want to provide is that domestic violence hotline that I mentioned. It's 24/7. The number is 1-800-799-7233. You can remember it because it's 1-800-799-SAFE. It spells out the word safe at the four last digits. That number, they'll help you to develop a safety plan, because it's very important when you're leaving an abusive relationship to have some type of plan in place, because a lot of times it can be like a life or death situation. You don't want to tell the abuser, "Oh, I'm leaving you," or let them know your plan. You need to work with someone that you can trust, who will help you to get out of that situation into safety. That's number one. Number two, the nonprofit that I have. So we have monthly master classes. It's a hybrid program. So even before COVID, we were online with just 2 annual meetups or biannual meetups in person. So we still do that in October and in April. And so you can find out more information or join as a mentee. We have sponsorship available for people who may be impacted by financial abuse. You can go on notbymyown.com. So everywhere you can find me at Not By My Own, either the hashtag, typing in Not By My Own, and that will pop up. I have 4 books right now, and I use them all as tools. So either Not By My Own, you can use as a domestic violence prevention or recovery tool. You can also use Memoirs of a Wounded Soul as domestic violence and prevention recovery. Then I also have There's a Jewel in You Volume 2. That is for people who dealt with teenage abuse as well as teenage pregnancy. So if you find out, hey, I'm pregnant, your life is not over, because that's what I was told. So my chapter in that is actually My Life is Over But God. And the 4th book is There is the Girl with the Crooked Smile, because that's what I always had. And I was trying to use that as a way to build positive self-esteem, how to affirm yourself with the word of God, how to encourage yourself. So if somebody else tell you, hey, you're ugly or you're not good enough, you're not going to believe that. You're not going to put up with all that because you already know who you are. And so all of those books are available on Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble, and then Walmart.com as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Miss Toy, you on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, I don't have all of those accolades as Miss Beautiful Whitney over there.
You still
It's just me, myself, and I, obviously. But I actually
I see you have a group that you're with, Ladies Corners or something. It seems like you guys do some positive things.
So Ladies Love Corners is a group that I joined 3 years ago. And we do a lot of women empowerment, building. It is a selective enrollment. It's not, unfortunately, open. You do have to apply, and you do have to, fit, is what we call fit the mold. It's not to disinclude anybody. It's just we're very protective of the space and the community that we've created. Not all energies are good energy. So for that, it's not something that you can just join, pay a fee, and no, we are very selective in our choices. Open enrollment is once a year. We don't necessarily have a specific time, but if you can go to Ladies Love Corner on all social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram. We do a few like nonprofit things where if it's helping the homeless, but again, it's very personable. And some people are like, oh, that's just another girl group. It's not just another girl group. Right. We do a lot of, again, accountability partners. If you have goals, we help you, attain those goals. There's so many awesome women in our group, from florists to realtors to people that started their own businesses. Like, there's so many different things just within our personal circle that we don't necessarily have to go outside of that. Mm-hmm. Everything you need is right here. But outside of that, if anyone is interested, please look us up, check us out. But to get to me personally, again, I'm just the social media person, Latoya Obi Brown. My page is open. It's not private. If you do want to talk, share, I am, again, probably the best conversation you'll have. Just with, again, being transparent. Some people, like we said before, just need a safe space. And before they call those 1-800 numbers or those hotlines, sometimes those can be threatening and intimidating. So sometimes you may find a safe space or a comfort in just the conversation first before you take that next step. So I'm here.
Thank you, ma'am. Miss Carolyn.
Okay, I'm gonna do mine real quick. The young lady already had spoken about when you're coming out of domestic violence situation, the protocols for that. So I'm not going to go back through that. But here in Kentucky, we have what they call the Merriman House, and it's a domestic violence crisis center here. Is really, really huge. The number is 270-943-6001. When I was in Chicago, I was affiliated with Sarah's Inn, and I'm still affiliated with Sarah's Inn because Sarah's Inn will help you get your education. You know, they will help you train, go on the job training, pay for housing, just whatever you think you may need. Sarah Inn, that's what they do. So that number is 708-386-4225. And so here in Kentucky, like I said, I'm a part of SOS, and SOS is a community faith-based center that we're all women of the neighborhood and in the community in our church, where we come and we support women who are going through. We speak transparent to them. If it's something that they want to come out and share, it's fine. If not, we just keep speaking transparent till they get to that day that they want to speak their truth, because it's truly about speaking your truth. I'm also a part of Sister Help. Sister Help comes from me. It belongs to me. God gave it to me because I was the silent sister who was hollering for help that no one knew about it. I have a page that's on Facebook, and it's just Sister Help Ministry. You know, you can look that up. And of course, my own page, Carolyn Howard. Howard is my maiden name, and Webb, and my page is open. And I'm also one more thing, a part of the Lifesaver class, and my pastor teaches that class. It's an online class. He screens online, so you can come on Wednesday at 11:30. Tuesdays from 11:30 to 12:30, and watch him teach from a Lifesaver book that he has written. And when I want to tell you, it's phenomenal. When it's the right class, it changes your life.
Thank you. I appreciate you, ladies. This has been phenomenal. I'm telling you guys, this has been amazing. I sure appreciate you guys. So for me, let me share. Well, I just got my 501c3 this week. So I am now a nonprofit for my Connected by Love Consulting, where I deal with mental health, because that's something that we don't really talk about in our community. That's why it's called, as Miss Carolyn said today, what happens in this house stays in this house, and we had to get rid of that myth. So I get people in contact with whatever facility. I've worked with Cook County before, as well as DHS. I've worked with them too, with mental health, and providing people with information on what they need for their family members. I do have a couple of books out as well, called Addicted to Pain and From Fast to Freedom, False Allegiance to Destructive Stuff. You can find those on Amazon. I just started a journal. I have a spiritual journal that I'm just working through different things, like a self-love journal, and trying to put those things out there, because sometimes you have to do the work yourself. It's not easy. We talked about it. Looking at yourself can be hard, and it's not the most cutest thing in the world. Because when you realize you got problems, you're like, I got problems. Because you go through life thinking I'm cool. You know, it's everybody else that got problems. Because it's easy to look at, say, hey, it's y'all. So I do have those things going on. So again, ladies, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. This podcast comes out on the third Monday of the month. So you'll be able to watch this on the YouTube channel as well as on all podcast platforms. So again, ladies, thank you. And thank you for being on this podcast, and have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.